I've already got a third head of cabbage cut up. I've got a third of a bell pepper, a red bell pepper. I don't use green bell peppers a lot. You can use a green one if you want, but I've got the red bell pepper and I've got a third of a yellow onion. Now I'm gonna dice up this jalapeno, and I'm wearing gloves because I certainly don't want to get this in my eyes. And you see that? The seeds, that's where all the heat is. And I'm just taking all of that out. Now I've got that all out, and I'm just gonna go ahead and I am gonna throw, I think, the whole jalapeno in here. Now I'm going to switch gears on you. So while I was cutting up my vegetables, I had 1 pound of ground turkey on the stovetop eye that I scrambled. You can use ground beef if you'd like. The recipe calls for ground beef, but unfortunately I have to use ground turkey. Now we're going to set that aside. I did drain the fat off of that ground turkey. There's a little fat on it, and I rinsed it really well. That's just me. That's what I like to do. Now we're going to put about a tablespoon of olive oil in a large pot, and you will need 1 13-ounce package of Polish kielbasa, and I'm just using my kitchen shears to cut this. You could have even scrambled your ground beef in this pot and made this a one-pot meal, but I didn't. And then once you got your kielbasa sliced, go ahead and just scramble that. Turn your stovetop eye onto medium if you're following along, and we're just going to brown that just a little bit. Add your bell peppers and onions too. Don't walk away from this. You will want to stir this occasionally. Once you see your kielbasa start to brown, cut that stovetop eye down to low. Now let's add that jalapeno. And let's give it another stir. Now let's put a lid on this and let this cook for about 5 minutes on low heat so those flavors can cook together. After about 5 minutes, take that lid off, and we're going to give this a really good stir, and then we are going to add the ground turkey to this. Now you may be using ground beef, but I've got ground turkey. Add 1 packet of chili seasoning mix right on top of your ground turkey or ground beef. Normally, I would take that chili seasoning mix and put it in my ground turkey and cook it into it because it just flavors it so much better. But I didn't do that with this recipe because I had never made this before. However, I will do that next time, and there will be a next time, y'all. This was so good. Now you will add 1 can of whole potatoes or sliced potatoes. I did cut my potatoes in half. The recipe calls for 1 can of diced tomatoes with jalapenos in it. That I did not have, so I added 1 can of fire roasted tomatoes, and I added that jalapeno to make up for that. Now I'm going to add 1 can of light red kidney beans, 2 cans of chili hot beans, now let's give this a big stir. Add a 1/2 cup of water, and here's my reasoning, because the original recipe doesn't call for it. The original recipe called for you to boil your cabbage aside on a different in a different pot, and because I did not, I added the half a cup of water to give it a little moisture because I just felt it needed it, y'all. You know, I mean, that's what we cooks do. We just do our own thing. So now I'm just going to add some salt and pepper on top. And then one last ingredient. We're not through yet. This recipe calls for salsa, and I had some homemade salsa that I had made, and I added a half a cup of that salsa right on top of that cabbage to give it a really good flavor while it cooks. Let's put a lid on this, and we're going to let this cook on low heat for about 20 minutes until your cabbage is the way you like it. I don't like mine mushy, so I really like to add it this way. Since I didn't add the breakfast sausage like it called for, I know it would have been absolutely delicious. That was just too much meat for my husband and I. I decided that, breakfast sausage has sage in it, so I added a half a teaspoon of sage to this. And then after 20 minutes, I gave this a big stir, and voila, this is done. And I want to thank my sister for this, my sister in Christ, for this recipe. This is such a yummy recipe. And also in the description, I will post the original recipe as well. This is just my version of it. Because of my allergies, I have to cook this way. But I hope y'all enjoyed it because we sure did.